We get to have some fun today together. And we get to celebrate what's here, celebrate you, celebrate what's arising in each of our systems, and especially celebrate the resistances that are here. Any voices that are like, I want something different. I want my life to be different. I want my health to be different. I want the leadership in my nation to be different. I want the world to be different. Those those voices that we hear inside us. Is there awareness of like right now, what parts, what voices are preferring something to be different? Like body to feel different. I want more comfort. I want more love. I want more money. I want more fun. I want more attention. I want more appreciation. And then can we also find like what's here behind that or beneath it? Sometimes we call it this background, this beingness, that self. What's here for you in the background? Is there a peace here? Stillness, a love, a welcoming, a connectedness. What's here? And as you notice the background, what's the relation between this background that we call beingness or self or the sky and this that's arising in you? What is the relationship between the two? And so as we get to know each other and we do this exploration today, I'm just going to kind of, we'll start by, I'll just kind of go around and ask each of us, what's what's the most prominent quality, welcome Maddie, of beingness that's here now, of self, of this peace, love, okayness, whatever word you have, or what is your nature? And what's the flavor of it that's here now? Is it's in a presence, an aliveness, and a connectedness, a flow? What's the most prominent quality? And then what are the two loudest arisings in your system? What are the two loudest arisings, like thoughts, feelings, sensations, which we often label them as parts, if that's helpful. But what are the two loudest arisings? Like, oh, maybe a curiosity, what are we doing here? Or God, I'm not really understanding the sense of sky, being this true nature. That's not, those words aren't translating. I have different words for it. Or maybe there's some discomfort, or maybe a skeptic, or like, do I really want to be here today? I'd rather be like watching my favorite TV show on Netflix. What are the loudest two parts that are here for you? And so I was talking with Mary, we'll start with Mary, then we'll just kind of go around and you can always pass and come back to you, or like, I just want to be quiet, whatever's there for you. Mary, what's here for you? Oh, you're muted, Mary.
Yeah, when I stop, what's in the background, and when I kind of stop and let everything sort of settle, there's silence, just and stillness that comes online or that I realize is there. And then as far as what's loudest, it's kind of a rushing around because I was rushing to make sure I got here on time and had my coffee ready and all that. Um, and what else is here? So there's kind of a buzziness as a sensation and that little anxiety, not anxiety, tension, I guess, and um, little tension, tightness in my neck as far as physical. My shoulders sort of been, and arm has been bothering me. So those are, I guess, my loudest parts right now.
Thank you, Mary. Now, for those of us, if you're new to this group with us or haven't been here for a while, idea like we're going on a journey together. And the invitation is, like, as Mary shares this quality of self, as there's silence here, there's silence. The invitation is for you, what's most like silence that's here for each of us? It's most like silence that's here now. And Mary also found stillness. What's most like stillness that's here now for you? The reason we do this is so much of this game, we call it in IFS, we call it self-leadership. It's just all the traditions have different ways of speaking about it, but it's just becoming more and more intimate with this background, with this sky, with this beingness. And we don't have to do it by ourselves. Like today, we'll get to each of us will help the others in sharing what's here, see if we can find it. And the good news is, like if you can't find stillness right here or a version of it, we have Mary here. And you can just focus on Mary Square. And it's like as a tuning fork. See if you can find the stillness that she's speaking of, letting yourself resonate with it. And she also spoke of the parts. And so here's my question for all of us. Are the parts exclusively, are they just Mary's parts that she's speaking of? When she speaks of, oh, there's a part that's rushing, there's kind of a buzziness, there's some tension here, there's some tightness. Or as we hear that, just like the beingness, can we also be like, oh, I know that part too in myself? Sense of rushing, getting something done. I got to be there on time, feeling the tension in the body. And part of this game is to be aware of these arisings in our system and being able to know them, just labeling them as parts. The reason I find that immensely helpful is because we then become aware of the tension. Instead of saying, I am tense, I am hurrying, I am nervous, we're like, oh, I'm aware of tension. It's a part. And then that helps. That discernment is just key in this game. And it's also wonderful for the end of suffering in your system. So that was our intro. Thank you, Mary, for getting us all started. And before I go further, let me just, I locked the room, so it'll be the six of us today. And let me just do my real quick housekeeping, which is that I'm not a psychotherapist. So this isn't the IFS of psychotherapy. Rather, today, it's the six of us exploring as friends and colleagues. And if everyone's good with that and is good being responsible for your own journeys today, if I could get a thumbs up from you, please. Awesome. And the other thing is I'm recording this, but the only visual that will ever be shared is my square. However, the audio of your speaking today could be shared because I might share this electronically or via my website because there are only six of us here. I'm wanting to make this available for others who are exploring these edges. But this is quite different from other workshops in that we don't go into the story of the arisings. Instead, we listen for what is being longed for, and we help our systems find that the fulfillment is here now. And at the same time, if you say anything during our hour and a half together that you're uncomfortable with, just stay on with me at the end. Let me know, and I can go delete, delete, delete. Is everyone good with that? Understands this might be shared? If I could get a thumbs up, please. Awesome. And now I'm going to get it. My friend Jack, who I haven't seen in like a lot of weeks. How's it going, Jack?
I'm here. I made it.
Yay!
Wow. The 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 concession I'll make is you said the word intimacy before, and that you call it background, but it doesn't really feel like background exactly. Is the characteristic, if I had to give a characteristic of that sense of being or that capital S self, it would be that it would be intimacy, right? Like like almost indescribable intimacy, like an intimacy that is the thing it's being intimate with, as opposed to just being intimate with something else. It's like it is it, you know. So, I mean, what do I want right now? What parts are wanting something? There's a sense of wanting to take my next breath, I guess. There's a if you could think just like sort of pure enjoyment as a part, I guess anything can be a part. Just sort of that just sense of like, wow. That's kind of what's going on here.
And in that pure enjoyment, in that wow, is there a sense of, oh, I like this wow, I like this wow. And maybe is there any sense of preference or wanting for more wow?
It's kind of on tap, you know? It's kind of on tap. So it's not, it's like being a bartender, you know, and wanting to have some beer. It's like on tap, you know. So is it there? Yeah, it's there. Enjoy it? Yeah, it's there. Am I wanting it? Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of the analogy, maybe. Not that I've ever been a bartender, or not that I drink beer that much, but
Nice.
it's
Let me
so. I guess I'm sort of unasking your question in a way, there, Sid. But yeah,
oh, let me just bring everybody into this, Jack.
sure.
How's your system making sense of what Jack's sharing with us? When he speaks of this intimacy that's like almost like beyond intimacy, that it's not separate from what it's intimate with. How do you know that? What's your flavor of that? And is that a nature? Is that a quality of an essence of what our nature is, this intimacy for you? Or what's your version or flavor of it? And it's also interesting that Jack used the word concession before sharing that some of us, sometimes their experiences of these qualities we speak of, it almost has to be a step up from this beingness. Some call it like the equanimity, the silence, the openness that has no qualities. A little concession find the quality of intimacy. We're playing in concession land today in an effortless IFS because we find that our parts, the wants that come up, that I want something to be different, that what they're absolutely longing for is beingness, is self, is a quality of it. And so it's hard to get them to be happy by just saying, oh, there's just silence here, there's emptiness. Instead, when we find that there's, oh, wait, in this emptiness, there's intimacy here, there's welcoming, there's love, there's care, there's a sense of being heard, appreciated, connectedness, flow. And then this other area, what Jack was struggling with, I just love the struggle when I'm kind of pushing, like, but what about the want? What about lack there? And in his system, it's like right now, everything's just on tap, Sid. I can't find that because it's just flowing like on tap, like a beer on tap. And then it just continues to play in the subtlety of our systems. See when there's any sense of catch, the Buddhists say all sufferings just resist. Some of them say resistance, to notice when there's resistance, when there's not an absolute loving of what is. And in this game, we just label those as parts whenever there's any of that. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. Labeling as parts, you get to see it as an object, and that's what helps us find this freedom of beingness. Anything else you'd like to share, Jack?
Yeah, I want to share listening to what other people are doing. That's what I want to share.
Yay. Well, let's see. This is so rich because what is Matty, Andre, and Ruchi? What's happening in their systems? Matty, you get to be the next star. Tell us about you. What's here?
Shedding small tears with Jack's description of what I'm experiencing. There's love and sweetness and also a part which is some sense of foreboding. I guess it's awe, but it's also some resistance in it.
Art that has, you said there's foreboding, that there's both awe and resistance in the part. Will you tell us more?
Mm. It's not really speaking, but there's the sweetness and then that, so I guess the bitterness of foreboding awe, which combines to make a nice dark chocolate. I like chocolate. Yeah, there's not knowing, yes. So there could be some yearning for, yeah, that's me. Maybe 76%. It's paradoxical that the sweetness is right here, embracing the trembling.
Maddie speaks of this beingness that's here, this love and sweetness. It's most like that in each of us. And can you feel it in Maddie? This love and sweetness that is just resounding like this music. Does your body, can you find a resonance of it? Does it resonate with love and sweetness in your system? Love and sweetness. And Maddie also speaks of uncertainty and not knowing. Can you relate to that part? Can you resonate with that part that would like to have more knowing, more security, more safety, maybe more clarity? You relate to that part that just kind of steps into the future. And in your system, can you find a discernment even between like the love and sweetness? We speak of this beingness and self as here now, as now. And you find like the love is here now. And in that beingness, there's nothing missing. There's like an absence of lack. See if you can find that in you, or maybe whatever word that's closest to that for you, closest to this love, this sweetness, this now. And then can you relate to this part again that Maddie speaks of that kind of goes into the future a little bit? We kind of, from this now, from this fulfillment of the now, goes into the future. But what about this not knowing? And it kind of would like to have more safety, more security, more clarity, more knowing. Can you see the innocence of that part, that expression in Maddie? Innocence of that not knowing what's going to happen later today, tonight, tomorrow? And can you see the innocence of that in your own system? The not knowing, and this that does want to know, maybe even to know what we're going to be doing a half an hour from now, because like what to say when Sid calls on Andre, sorry, like what to say, a sense of knowing. Maddie, what else would you like to add to that for us, the story you've opened for us today?
Oh, again, it's a delicious combination. I'm really grateful to Jack for the word intimacy, because it is like loving intimacy without a second, without something else or someone else, just reality. And that was a little realization. The sweetness makes it okay in a way to be, like slightly traumatized or whatever.
I feel like for all of us, when we hear Maddie say that this intimacy with what's arising, with the fear, the not knowing, it makes it okay. Even if there's trauma here that arises in the unknown or in the experience, that this intimacy makes it okay. And you find that almost like a child being loved by a parent, and it's just enveloped in that love, this intimacy. And is this here, how can you relate to that in your system, this intimacy that Jack and Matty are speaking of? Maddie, anything else you'd like to share about it?
Well, it's just there's a lot of energy in that intimacy. It's not like blank being. It's more like it's a fountain of sweetness. Okay. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Maddie. What's our versions of that fountain of sweetness? Ruchi, what is happening in your system as all this richness comes and you join us today? What's here for you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm taking it all in and recognizing that I'm in a different place than I was even 5 or 10 minutes ago. So there is that energy that Maddie referenced. For me, it's showing up in a calm way, a calmer way. And I would liken it to like yeah, the gentle back and forth, like of a on a lake where there's like some movement of the water and everything. Is that kind of that's some of what's coming up for me? And yeah, at the same time, I think that gentle back and forth is it part of that is kind of there is this this frustration and kind of loss that I have been feeling. And it's really related to this need, this unmet need here for connection with a specific person, and also some ease in that connection. And that's really kind of the parts that are up here. But it's kind of like in this back and forth space. It's not a not in a violent way.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a sense of both. This calm lake, the kind of the back and forth, of the water, the gentle movement, And then this longing, this unmet need for connection with this person. Can both of those be, sometimes we think of it as foreground and background, can both of those be felt or seen?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And also this need for ease in that, that's where some of that other pieces come.
And then for all of us, with what Ruchi just said, the calmness of this gentle lake and the movement, the back and forth. What's the resonance for you as you hear her describe that? What do you find as an expression of beingness, as this background, perhaps as a concession? And then as we hear about the longing that a part in her has, that she has for connection and for ease, can you be aware of both your background and the precious parts that are wanting something different than what is? And then here's a question for all of us. What is it that our parts are truly longing for? The part in Ruchi's, your part, that's like, I want connection with this specific person. For each of us, as we notice the expressions of our parts, the expressions of whatever it is, or just what you want, what do you want for happiness and fulfillment and peace for each of us? As we hear that, what is it truly longing for? If you had connection with this person, Ruchi, what would you have? What is really being longed for? What would you say?
Yeah. I think it goes back to that intimacy, or what I would say is that oneness, that happens when there is that connection. This idea that there is, in a way that's not codependent or anything, but just this idea of this connection where, it's not a separateness in that connection. There's that togetherness in the connection.
So how about that? How about this aspect of you, this voice that arises, this part that's just, I want connection with this particular person. And we all can relate to this, right? To people that are in our lives or that have been in our lives, and that longing. Can we see the innocence and the sweetness of that voice, of that part? Because as you were describing, what does it get in this connection? Wait a minute, it gets this not separation, it gets this oneness, it gets to like rest in that. Just the yumminess of that, and how that part is trying to give us something very lovely.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, what we play with here, is seeing what we can find that's here now that can help give some fulfillment to that part. And this isn't to exclude that part going out and doing everything it can to get connection with that person. But this is in addition to that, to see what fulfillment can be found here now, this connectedness, a oneness, a unity, like a separation, the sense of connection that we might have a taste of even right here amongst us, or with the space that you're in, or the tree that's outside of your home, or the sky, the connection that's here now. And so I ask all of us, what's most like connection? What's most like unity? What's most like what we hear Ruchi's part is longing for in this partner that's here now for each of us? Most like it. And can you touch it somatically? Can you know it somatically? You feel it.
That's harder for me. I'll share, but yeah, I can try.
And what is it for you, Richie? What would your word be for it? Or what's the flavor of what you can find now, and that's most like the connection that's being sought?
Um, the words I would use are this shared understanding, shared belief in the power of what we're doing. But hard to get it in my body.
Yes. And lastly, as we notice the part in all of us that loves connection and loves it perhaps with a particular person, can that part feel what's here now? Can it feel perhaps there's okayness here, there's peace here, there's love here, there's okayness here, or there's connection here, or there's just some stillness here. And notice that part that's longing for the connection. Maybe there's a little bit of relief, a little bit of rest in finding what's here now. Anything else you'd like to share, Richie?
Yeah, I think just the acknowledgement of the sweetness of that part is really helpful.
Thanks. Beautiful. And for all of us, as we hear Richie say that, acknowledging the sweetness of that part, can we see that in our own systems too? The sweetness of that part that might be really frustrated, it might be upset. We see the sweetness of what it's longing for. Thank you. Thank you for taking us there, Richie. Before we go to Andre, let's just notice what's here for all of us. How are you for each of us right now? How are you? Notice how your system answers. Does it answer? Does it point to a part? Oh, this is fulfilling. This is that. This is, notice what comes up. How are you? And does it also point to qualities of beingness? Where does the how are you go? And then before we go to Andre, there's also the here now. Like here we are in this presence. Notice again in the here now, is there anything missing? Is there any lack here in this presence, in this now? And then from here, we're going to dive in again with Andre's precious system to see what's going on in him and to celebrate it. What's there, Andre?
Oh, thank you. So my background is just a lovely stillness, just a peace that, like things just are okay, everything's just fine, life is still and just perfect. But a bit like a summer's day, I love that exquisite summer's day when everything's all right in the world, the sun is shining, you feel at ease and at peace, and you're connected to life. So that's in my background.
Give us just a moment, Andre. It's so exquisite what you just shared. How's that for everyone as we feel Andre, as we resonate with this or we hear his words? Exquisite summer's day, sun is shining. We're connected with everything. Exquisite summer's day. Everything's okay, everything's fine. What changes inside your system as we're all becoming more and more intimate with this beingness, getting to know what the traditions call our nature, this self. What's that like? Resting is this okayness. Everything's fine. An exquisite summer's day. And then Andre, with this as your background, what do you notice? What arises? What's the weather that comes and goes?
there's like a little angry piece, a little part of me that's quite young. It's sort of it kind of little tantrum in, angry because the world isn't the way he wants it to be. So there's a little there's anger, a little part of me that's angry. Sort of a little bit of a rage as well. Almost a little bit of heartbreak that, you know, I can't control the world and I'm trying to, but I'm trapped in that soul part or connected to it.
And what's it like to have that part here, while there's also this fineness, this okayness, this exquisite summer's day?
It's actually quite nice to have both together, because it puts a little bit of context. It all creates a little bit of separation around it. So although I was connected to it, I feel, you know, less connected. It's almost a little bit more distinct, but held by that background okayness. I'm kind of loved in a way. Now when I bring that perspective in.
Let me just bring everybody in with this one. As we hear Andre speak about this part, it's just kind of disgusted the way the world is, angry, wants to be different, maybe even some rage. Wants to be different, wants the world to be different. It should be different.
Mm.
Can we all find that in our systems? We find this. And Andre was interesting, he called it a young part. It's almost like a tantrum. Like, does yours feel like a young part, or it might be yours a sophisticated elderly part? It could, but how is it expressed in you? This one that wants the world to be different. The world should be different. Do you have a sense of, is it young? Is it older? What's that sense of the age of this part in you? This loudest expression of that? And then when we hear it in Andre, like with Ruchi's part, can we hear the innocence of it? This one that's just desperate for the world to be different. It shouldn't be this way. Can we see like the innocence and the beauty of that part, even if it was having a tantrum, even if it was cursing? Can we see the innocence and beauty of that part? Sometimes it's easier to see it in others than our own systems, and that's why I invite you to find it, see if you can see it in Andre. And then can you find that in your own system? The anger, whatever the expression is of wanting the world to be different. And can you welcome that? Can you see the innocence of it? And perhaps even see the love of it, that's caring for others and caring for this world. And in Andre's system, he describes it's almost like it's being held by this being, it's by the background, like it's being loved. What's it like in your system? What is your degree of intimacy with this part without doing anything, just noticing as you're aware of this expression in you? How close are you with it? How welcomed is it? And often in our systems, there's another part that arises that says, you shouldn't be angry. You should not be rage. Oh God, you definitely should not have a tantrum. Like, we know like parts that come up and say that. If you have a part like that, can you also just see the innocence of that and how it's trying its best to look out for you? And then if you have that part, can you be aware of both of them? The one that's just disgusted with the world, and the one that says, that you shouldn't express yourself that way, or you shouldn't be here, or you shouldn't. We see both of those. And as we're aware of this, we call it a polarity in effortless in the IFS. And as you're aware of that polarity, are they both welcomed? Are they both welcomed by the exquisite summer day, by the pond, by the intimacy, by the stillness? Andre, how about a part 2? Where else would you like to go take us with this?
So what do you mean by part 2?
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? It's such an exquisite place you've opened for us. Anything else that's here?
Well, when you spoke about the second part, the part that was chastising, the part that was being tantruming, that was really good. And it's when I brought the summer's day into it, it felt like two twin children just sort of happily playing. So that was lovely. When I brought the summer's day in, I'd say there's a part of me that's a little bit confused by all this. There's a little bit of a confused part because this is new, so it's a little bit bewildered and doesn't know what's going on. So there's that part, the uncertainty part.
Mm-hmm. And as you notice that, first, can we all relate to that? A confused part, or in my system, it's like an understanding part, one that's trying to make sense of it. It's like always behind my head. It's like this one that's trying to make sense of things. Maybe to get grounded, to get a sense of balance, have everything kind of fit. Can we all relate to that in the confused part, understanding part? And as that's here, sometimes our system might blend with it, right? Sometimes it might be like, oh, I'm confused. Just to notice that. And then one of the tricks, just for all of us right now, to see if you can be aware of at least 2 parts, not just one. See if you can be aware of 2 parts simultaneously, as we're aware from this exquisite summer's day, that there's this one that in Andrea's system that's kind of upset. The world should be different. There's another one that saying it shouldn't be here. It shouldn't express itself. And then there's this confused part. And notice when we're aware of 2 or more parts, it just takes 2. It becomes very difficult to blend and identify with the part. And it's also one of the big tricks for like stepping back into more and more identification as this awareness, as this that's aware. And it's also a trick for dramatically decreasing your suffering like that. Anything else, Andre?
Anything else? I mean, this would be me guessing, but there's a part that is almost like the elephant in the room, a big part over there that I'm not kind of really looking at, but I've got a sense of it. So maybe, I don't know.
Let me ask everyone, as Andre brings up, there's a part, I'm not so aware, but it's an elephant in the room. Maybe we feel it. What's that in your system? Is it a should that's here? Is it some shame? Is it fear? Is it, oh, there's something I really need to do? There's something that's wrong. Is it a critic? What is that part in your system? And maybe if you could just have a sense of the location of that part. Is there something about being able to find a location? Then it's like a part, and it's not me. It's something I'm aware of. And this becomes a lot of the game, especially with a group like this, where our systems have become so subtle with this beingness and the parts. So much of the game becomes identifying the more subtle and hidden parts that we're not aware of. Like kind of what we were kind of shooting for with Jack, like to find like what's still here? What's still here that can cause any contraction, any want that can take us from the now, that can take us into any kind of suffering? What is it that does that in our system? Any other thoughts on that, Andre? What that elephant in the room might be?
I think it's almost like it's who I want to be, but I can't, sort of thing. Something that I've suppressed. Maybe my nature, my identity, who I am, I've had to suppress. So it's always there. But and this is me just guessing, but that's what it feels like. My voice almost. And really, when I speak, at the moment when I speak, it's not really coming from my center. It's just, there's not that authenticity, and it's almost like that's part of something around that.
Wow. So where do we all go with that when we hear Andre speak of this authenticity, and who I kind of like what my nature is, and I'm being pulled to? What's that pull like in us, or that awareness of it? Is it like we're being pulled down, pulled up, pulled back, or is it more just authenticity? Like, wow, if I'm authentic, I can hear it in my voice. It's like we can hear it in our voice, or we can. This guy that developed IFS named Dick Schwartz, he calls it indicators of self. And voice, that Andre points to, as one of them. How do we know when there's a sense of, wow, this channel is open, I'm connected, there's a connectedness as this being, this as true nature that's coming through? What are your indicators of it? Is it voice? Can you tell by voice? Is it a sense of the body relaxing? Is it your breath? Is it a sense of the connectedness that you have? Or is it more Jack's word? Is it more the intimacy? How do we know what are our indicators? Why don't we, often in this group, about 15 minutes ago, I would have led us in a kind of a 15-minute journey, or now, but it's seeming richer, kind of exploring with each of us and seeing what's here, and kind of almost like diving in to each of our realities, each of our systems together. So many gifts here. I think I'd like to just keep it open with us and to see where we go, and maybe we formally go around again, or maybe just open it up for a moment and see what's bubbling. What's bubbling here. Who would like to share something?
Well, one of the things that came up for me, or came up here, was, but for me, the idea of connection doesn't have to be peaceful, right? Which is, yeah. But when I think of that, the example of, I maybe you guys have heard me say this, but does anyone here want to be punched in the face? Probably not. But there are people who search for people who are really good at punching in the face, and they like boxing, or they like some sort of extreme martial arts, and someone who can't do a good job of trying to punch them in the face, they just can't connect with them. They can't relate to it, right? So I just realized how much I sometimes want a connection to be peaceful, and just really how that's not the way the world is. and so am I willing to be intimate with or connected with the struggle or the clashing of differences? Am I willing to be with that? And that sort of just takes me back to trying to defend myself, right? So that all just really popped up really strongly in what people were saying here today. Uh, and it really doesn't feel like a polarity anymore. It's not that there aren't two things you could describe as being a polarity. It feels like sort of like a layer above that that sees the interplay of that polarity and sees how they depend on each other in a way. So that's getting pretty cerebral, if you will. But there's a feeling of that being there, that's not so cerebral, and that's just part of what's my reaction to quote the world as it is. That's really came up real strongly for me.
Thank you. It really makes sense of what Jack just shared. Notice if you have any parts that feel like, oh, am I wrong to want the world to be different? Because we're celebrating our parts, right? That want the world to be different, that have their shoulds. And we're seeing the absolute innocence and how there can be like, who are our superheroes in the world, right? The cartoons, the superheroes are always the ones that go and they try to right the wrongs and make the world better. And it's like those parts that show up in our system, and maybe like Andres, that are just like rageful. No, this is wrong. We have to do something about it. We have to make it different. But then we can also notice how I'm interpreting what Jack was sharing, that then there's also this beingness, this clarity, this knowing, this Maddie's name for it, this love, sweetness, that can see that just is, it's an intimacy with what is. That's just kind of a love of what is. That it can even see the beauty in someone coming up and punching you in the face, or the beauty. I mean, this is where it gets difficult, right? See the beauty in the okayness, the acceptance of the violence, not just for the boxer, but for, like when we see the children suffering around the world now, in the Middle East, in Ukraine and Russia. Like something in us that just accepts what is, that loves what is. And then we have our parts that come up to say, no, I want this to be different. What else is here? It doesn't have to be about this. What else is arising for us as the six of us? How is your system doing? What's happening in you? Like what we're interested in, even though we're talking about some big ideas, this game is really just about what's happening in you. How's the beingness? What's the background? The sweetness, the love, the exquisite summer's day, the lake, the stillness, the silence. And what are your parts that are coming up? And are you able to be aware of all of this? Can you be aware of the background in the foreground? Sometimes we call this like zooming out. And often we find our little metaphors for this. It might be like, wow, the space is like the galaxy, like a planetarium. And the parts are like a cosmos of planets that are arising in this galaxy of sweetness, of love, of intimacy, of stillness, of this back and forth pond. Or maybe it's like an ocean or an infinite hot tub, and the parts are soaking in the hot tub. Or maybe it's like a stage, a dance floor, and the parts are actors. So we can be aware of this all as part of the game here. But what we're really interested in is what's happening in your system, not to figure this out. That we don't, that's just a part, an understanding part that makes sense of it. And that's a precious part in our systems. But it's like to be aware of it all. What's going on? What is here? Maddie, what's happening for you?
After I shared, I became more thought-based and apprehensive. that I had shared something more narrative, and that and images of being judged or being condemned, or things that are on the news. And so there's a journey a little bit in coming back down into the fountain of sweetness.
Would you say it's like would it be like a critic showed up? It's like, well, I shared too much, or I shared it a certain way, or I don't know if it's
Yeah.
safe to share these things.
Yeah, say also safety. And yeah. Yeah.
Just to include everyone, what Maddie's sharing. And we find this even in this connected space that we're in now, parts that might show up and say, oh, maybe I should have said that differently, or I shouldn't have said that, or if I should have said something different. And then maybe the vulnerability, a part that, and then maybe a protector that's like, yeah, we keep things safe. We got enough vulnerability in our life to keep things safe. Notice how you can resonate with what Maddie shared. And I heard another part too, that was like, wow, we just want to like come back into the sweetness, find the sweetness again, find the love. Sometimes it's like a spiritual achiever. That's like, well, this was better 15 minutes ago when I was just in this bliss of love with what Jackie shared about intimacy, and we were in this intimacy together. And gosh, I'd really like to get back to that. Can you recognize a part like that in your system that has a preference? Anything else you'd like to share, Maddie, with all of this?
Really is everything at once, right? Even when the thinking turns on, it's still one global kind of embrace. It doesn't feel good, but there's a meta safety. Yes.
And does that go to kind of what Jack was pointing to? So the sense of it might not feel good. It might be a particular vision of what connection and love looks like. It might be, God, there's some anxiousness, there's some tension going on here. And at the same time, Maddie, you mentioned like a meta safety, a meta okayness, even in the midst of this that doesn't feel good. How do we all relate to that? Can we find that? And this is kind of an exploration of capacity in our systems, like how much dissonance can be here. And there's still a sense of, we're aware of it. There's an okayness. There's some sense of this background, this beingness. But then for all of us, can we notice that when it reaches a certain point, that it just kind of comes too much, that then we kind of blend and identify with, this is too much. Or like we call it a firefighter in IFS. I just got to get away from this. I need a break. Like, can we notice our capacity? And for all of us, we probably have a part that's like, well, I shouldn't do that. I should stay with what Maddie's speaking of, this meta sense of okayness. Can we see the value of the part in us when it reaches that level and it says, okay, that's enough. I'm just going to go turn on Netflix now. But really, 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 because we had these adult parts that are like, I should never do that. I should just stay here in this presence, in this openness, in this okayness. Anything else? But what else? Anything else you got with this, Maddie? Like to share?
I really enjoyed what you said about how much dissonance can be there, and we can still either notice or have faith that there's a sort of a meta safety. It's a deconditioning kind of an idea, and Mm. I'm attracted to the interplay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Maddie. So what else is alive for us? What's coming up? It's coming up inside of you. How is it going inside of you for all of us? Who's got something bubbling? Mary.
And I'll jump in. Yeah, I'm really resonating with the word innocence of because it's the fear in me, the need for certainty, the need, the fear of not knowing, all of it's all for me, it all comes back to fear, always just fear, fear, fear. And then the innocence is like, oh, that's not wrong. That's just like a little child who's scared, and the innocence of it is just really touching, um, and makes me feel more compassion for the part than the judgment of it. Um, so yeah, there's that, and then there's and it's tied into the confusion of not knowing where do I land. I want the wanting to know, a certainty of, okay, this is where I'm supposed to rest, and then then I'll be good, I'll be safe here, and then it, ebbs and flows, and yet the the innocence makes it, okay, it's okay, you're confused, it's okay to be confused. um I understand you're afraid. Yeah.
Let me just bring everybody into what you were sharing. This sense of safety. This sense that parts. Mary says, where am I going to land? Where am I going to be able to relax? And can we all track how our parts are trying to find safety for us, a place where we can relax, a place that we're going to be okay by kind of managing the circumstances in our lives? And can we find, is there compassion? Can we be excited for that? Wow, like some of us, people are like, wow, I'm really kind of good being in people that are really good in the world and they're able to manage these things really well. Like we love those parts of us that do that find that for us through circumstances. And then also this safety, this okayness. What's most like that, which is here now, which is causeless safety, causeless okayness, not conditional to any experience, to any circumstance. Where do you touch this? That Andre was just this exquisite summer's day. Everything's okay. The still lake, or the sweetness and love, or the stillness. Can we find it? Can we touch safety there, that there's a place to rest? Just thanks, Mary. I just wanted to include everybody in that. It was such a beautiful thing you were touching. Please, what else? Please continue, Mary.
As it's I have one of my big trigger points is seeing hypocrisy. I'm sure it's because it's probably huge in me, but when I see it in other people, particularly politicians and stuff, and that when you were talking, I think the phrase cognitive dissonance, I don't know if somebody mentioned it or if that's the way I heard it, but anyway, those, and then realizing, oh yeah, that's within me, whether it's about, yes, I want ice cream, but no, I don't, because I shouldn't. And, different layers of cognitive dissonance, and the struggle that creates within myself. And then the compassion for myself when I'm in that struggle. And then to realize everybody's just, some people are just more on the world stage with their craziness, whereas I stay hidden in my house. So just hoping that I can be more compassionate with myself and others in their struggles. And the more I'm knowing these parts of myself, it's like, oh yeah, everybody's got it. We're all just in this muck and mire trying to sprout. I kind of got a vision of mud and the lotus coming out of all of that. So yeah.
Let me ask everybody a question about that. When we hear Mary speaking about cognitive dissonance, what's our version of that inside our systems? Cognitive dissonance. Like, do you find that we often call them polarities, like parts that are wanting different things? Gosh, no, you really need to get up at 7 and go for a run, Sid. Oh, 7 o'clock, I only got 6 hours of sleep. I need to sleep more. No, but you really did. You're gaining weight. You need to do this. But I'm really tired. I'm going to be tired today. I don't want, or I want to eat this, whatever. The dissonance, like, what's your version of the cognitive dissonance? And can you find it as parts that just have different ideas of what's going to be best for you? And notice sometimes we blend and we go back and forth. Oh no, I need to go run. No, I need to stay in bed. No, I need to go run. And it's like, oh my gosh. And so, like, can we be aware of our parts? Can we be aware of them? And in IFS, we call it like speaking for our parts. I have a part that wants this and a part that wants this. Notice what that's like for all of us. And then when we hear it in others, when we hear in my country, in the US, when we hear Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and we hear sometimes on CNN, you'll have both of them on the news, have both of them up there, and one saying, this is what's best for America, and then the other one will say the exact opposite of what's best for America, and they'll keep going back and forth, like said, you got to run, no, you got to go to sleep, you got to run, you got to go to sleep. And just what happens in us? What about our capacity to welcome that, to see the innocence of that out there as well as in here? Anything else you'd like to share with us, Mary?
No, I think it's Punch and Judy, the little puppets. I know you do puppets, it's part of your thing, but the puppets of Punch and Judy came to mind, and it's just this yes, no, and it's like, as you were speaking, it was like, oh, seeing that conflict in the world is just a reflection of my inner conflict, and it's really the same. And if just anyway, that's kind of what came to mind on a intellectual level, understanding the part that wants to understand and make sense of it, and all yada yada yada, and then yep.
Yeah, beautiful. And lastly, Mary spoke about innocence at the very beginning when she was just sharing, seeing the innocence. And sometimes some people find it almost like having 2 kids. Sometimes you might have 5-year-old twins, and they're sitting at the table and they're saying, no, we need to have a lemonade stand to sell lemonade here. And the other one's like, no, we need to have it here. This is what's going to work better. And it's like, as the parent, we just see the innocence in the kids. We just see the innocence. Or I don't want to go to bed. And it's like what seems to open in this journey is seeing our parts more and more, seeing the innocence of our parts, especially even in the loud dissonance, seeing more and more of that. And the really cool thing is you might be like, oh, I've done inner work all my life, but it's what's crazy is then, as we know, it reflects into the outer. Like once we've truly seen the innocence of most of our parts, then when you have these politicians or whatever who trigger us argue in front of us, we can't help it. We just see the same in them. Who's next? Ruchi.
Yeah, I have a part that really wants to express herself, and that's just it. She just wanted to express. I don't know if there's anything in there, but that's not all I'll say. But I just want to acknowledge that part and how lovely it is.
Well, let me invite everybody to that. Can we relate to that? A part, something that I know I really want to say something. Me. And it's like it's just an innocent part that gets excited about something. Maybe it has an aha, or it wants to be heard and seen and connected, or it wants to contribute and share. Like, yay! What else? More Ruchi. What else?
Yeah, a lot came up for me in here. A lot of parts, and some of them, I mean, you know, some parts are easier to see the sweetness and the innocence based on, you know, what happens. They're not all like frustrated or anything like that. Um, and this idea of like, it's just speaking to the idea of authenticity and how, for me, it comes up where it's a part that won't be denied, or maybe it's not even a part, I don't know. But it's like comes up no matter whatever thing I try to put in it, it just comes out ultimately. And seeing that, seeing that happen is really, yeah, that that it might take a long time, but that authenticity does shine through.
And what is that? When the authenticity shines through, what do you see there?
Um, yeah, I mean, what's coming to mind is just this uncovering, right? Or not even an uncovering, but more of a, yeah, just a being. It's it's more linked to that background, that being state. Um, and maybe it's linked to a part too, I don't know. But yeah,
Nice.
it's a light, you know, it's a light. I guess that's it. I did have others, but now that confused part is there.
Oh.
But that's okay. It's okay.
Doesn't everybody, can we just find the joy in almost like the celebrating of Ruchi's part that's like, hey, I want to say this, and then there's the authenticity and just like the sense of welcoming it and celebrating these aspects of her that are here. How easy it is, and the sweetness and what we're seeing and the authenticity as we welcome it. And then can you find that within your own system? Like being excited about and fascinated by the parts of us that are arising. Even the part, like, even the part that might be rageful, might be having a tantrum. I mean, I don't want this. I want this to be different. It should be different, or I want this relationship to be different. I want the dissonance to change. I want things to be heard different. I want it to be different. Can we find enthusiasm and excitement for this life that's coming up in us? Just as we got to do that with Ruchi outside of us, can we do it inside of our own systems? And can you touch what happens? Like if we truly were like that, if we truly were welcoming and excited about everything that's arose, notice the sense of welcoming, the love that's here. Because again, like some of the Buddhists will say, it's like all of our problems, all the suffering comes from resistance. And if we truly were like Jim Carrey in the movie Yes Man, even though those were parts, if we truly were a yes to what was arising in us and truly like welcoming and celebrating these parts that arose in us. And let's see if there's anything else bubbling, and we can move towards closure now, or anything else bubbling with the group here. It's just been so rich.
Yeah, I guess when thinking about safety, the more I can impute my sense of self on pure potential, this, you know, the safer a bet that seems, if you will. Without trying to pick anything out particularly that would arise from that pure potential. And the other thing that's been coming up really strongly when I've been listening to people is a sense of, yeah, you guys have all seen auctions, right? Like cattle auctions or like the auctioneers. And I'll tell you, it's like an auction of attention by my part sometimes. Now, who's the auctioneer there? If I, who, it's well, who's the auctioneer? I don't know. Or is myself the auctioneer? That doesn't really seem quite right. But so when things are, you should do this, so you should do that. It's like an auction going on. Oh, yeah, but if you do that, blah blah blah. Oh, yeah, but if you do this, well, it's like an auction of ideas, which could be fun to watch, I guess. Those two going on without trying to pick sides. It's interesting. Or let them try to fight it. I think you're right. We said this before, but if you want to keep two things in mind, and that reduces your suffering, those two opposite parts, if you can keep those in mind, I think that reduces my suffering a lot. So that watching the auction go on. That's the image I have.
Love it. A couple of things that you said, Jack. One is for all of us as we're watching our auction, and whatever your metaphor is, it might be a party, it might be children, it might be cognitive dissonance of parts. As we're aware of that, the theater that's happening inside the auction, do we notice again at some level when it gets so loud, or the auction, someone's like, no, I must win, I'm the winner, you must hear me, or something, that it becomes a little too much, or we blend or identify with the part. As we're aware of the auction, which Jack it can be enjoyable to see all of this, to see this play inside, but just to notice when it identifies. And then again, compassion for that. It's just, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And then the other thing that came up with Jack, when he started talking about pure potential as this being, it's like, where do you go with that? And maybe you could feel it in Jack, just as the openness, this pure potential. You could just resonate with the gift that he's offering in the space of this. What's that in your system? How do you know this? What is this pure potential? Is it an openness? Like an aliveness, live presence. What is this pure potential? And what's it like when that's here? As we move towards closure here, any kind of final words, Andre? Anything you'd like to share as we move towards ending?
No, just generally, just having a soul exercise, moving the mind around and exploring, having fun around it. It's kind of fun, isn't it? And it kind of releases, relaxes, and you can see it's almost like Jack said, it's like an auction. I sort of see it more like a theatre, and you're sitting there watching the parts doing their thing, with my popcorn eating. So so that's changed since I started. So that's lovely. So thank you for that. But yeah, it's just having that space for things to come up and pop down and do their thing, and just being there, sort of being entertained by them, I suppose. Yeah.
Nice. Wow, is that possible? We really could be entertained by what's arising in us. It's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm gonna sit back and watch what's the theater, the entertainment that's happening inside me.
Relax
Really?
and get your popcorn.
Right? It's like, oh, the show's going, show started. Final words, Mary.
Yeah, the show started, but it really never ends. Yeah, and thank you for that, Jack, because when you said auction, but mine was like a symphony. And when you were asking I don't know who the auctioneer is, but I was like, I sing the conductor and kind of okay, you go, you get to speak, and kind of what you're doing, Sid. You're kind of playing conductor for this. So yeah, that's and then the entertainment factor of it, which really makes it a lot lighter. And then the other thing that with the pure potential, that was really hard for me to, in my, anyway, trust has, you know, it's like, oh, but I make sure I got to trust that the pure potential is going to give me what I want. So, you know, just more yammerings, but yeah, lots of popcorn ideas popping around. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. The entertainment of it all with our popcorn. Richie, what you got? What's your closure for us?
Yeah, so yeah, I would use that word lightness. And that kind of came up for me, especially towards the end. And I really resonated with that theater analogy of having the parts come in, like enter left or whatever, enter stage right. And just, yeah, as they come in and out, is watching that. So, and this idea of entertainment. Oh, yeah. My some of my parts really enjoyed that. So I appreciated all of that. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Richie. All right, Maddie, you're our grand finale for closure today. What you got for us? Bring it all together.
The background and the parts are they're not separate. It's the movie's not separate from the screen kind of analogy. And a scary movie sometimes. But it's there's actually no distance between the scary, even if the pure potential is like so powerful that it's scary. But the meaning of the movie and the screen, it's really, well, I would say sweet again.
Thank you, everybody. Mary, could you hold on with me for a moment afterwards? And I just in closing, just a sense of the gifts that you received from the five of us here with you, and how you found that, like, what we were sharing often wasn't just about our systems, as we were finding this kind of sense of shared being, connectedness. As you found it in us, just to know that that's our experience of you today. That's our experience of the preciousness of the beingness that you shared, that what you inviting us to get to know it better inside of us through you. And that you're sharing of your parts and speaking for your parts and sharing, and we got to find those within us. So just thank you for showing up and being you, and the gifts that you gave us all today. I'm grateful, and please come back again.